Women aren't as good at money as men are. Women are bad at math. Women are terrible investors. Women are impulsive spenders. Women who make too much money won't be desirable. Did these sentences make you cringe, maybe grow a little bit of heat in your belly, or make your muscles go tense? You're not alone. Today we're going to help to dispel these myths. I asked out on Instagram, what are some myths about women and money that you have heard or seen in your lifetime? And I got a ton of responses, but they really kind of fell into those 5 different categories. In today's episode, I'm going to go through each of these myths and help dispel them. So if you're a woman, you can start to shed some of that money shame around these stories that some of us might have internalized. Make sure to stay tuned until the end of today's episode because I don't want you to miss out on an exciting Mind Money Balance offer. Welcome to Mind Money Balance. I'm Lindsay, a popcorn lover, woman of color, and financial therapist and coach. This is the No Guilt, No Shame podcast to help you stand in your financial power. Let's go. I was on Instagram the other day, scrolling, as I have a bad habit of doing, and I paused when I saw a really cute home office setup, and what I thought was really cool about it was in the background, instead of doing a big wallpaper or mural, this person had just taken washi tape and taped it in a cute little geometric pattern on the wall. And it made it look like this kind of custom designed metallic mural. And so I saved the post because I was like, ooh, that's cute. I have washi tape. For those of you who don't know what washi tape is, it's like a decorative masking tape. So you can kind of stick it anywhere and peel it, and it's not going to mess up the paint or mess whatever you stuck it on. So I had saved it, and then I kind of like go on with my day. And then I remembered it later on that I'd seen that cute design. And then those thoughts started kind of piling in my head, like, you're not really that creative. Anytime you've tried to do something home decor-esque in the past, it hasn't turned out how you wanted. When you do it, the lines won't look straight. It's not going to turn out the way that you're envisioning it. So just, don't bother. Don't even try. And in that moment, I realized that I had written off an idea because I'd already made a decision that it wasn't for me. And why the heck am I bringing up washi tape and wall design in a podcast about money and emotions? Because this is how it works a lot of the time with money too. We have an inkling that maybe we want to get started investing or we want to create a financial plan, but we start talking ourselves out of it. We start telling ourselves things like, oh, I'm just not that good at math. Last time I tried working on my money, it was too hard and confusing. And, I'll just let somebody else do that. And these types of thoughts are common across the socioeconomic status, to be sure, and across genders. But in today's episode, I really want to focus on women and money, specifically kind of piggybacking off of last week's episode on money shame. Women and money myths that might lead to some internalized shame. So today I'm going to kind of break down those 5 myths that I had outlined at the start of the episode, share with you where they might come from, and then also kind of think about how to start moving through that narrative if you are a woman and you have soaked up some of these beliefs about women and money that aren't serving you. And I also want to extend an offer that I'll be doing a money shame release party. And if you stay tuned till the end, I'll give you all of the details. That shame release party is specifically for women. And it's so important that we have containers just for us, specifically when we're working on issues that could be really triggering to us. So let's start out with that first myth, shall we? So this one is a compilation of a lot of what I heard. And so I would summarize this first one essentially as women aren't as good at money as men, or they just simply can't manage their money. So this myth could come from a bunch of different places, but studies actually show that in heterosexual married couples, women are more concerned with getting their money right. They are more likely to be the ones who initiate an appointment with a financial advisor or retirement planner. They want to make sure that they are doing things in the right way. And so what that type of study tells me is a couple of things. One, it tells me that women don't trust themselves and they want somebody else to give them the stamp of approval that they can manage their money on their own. But it also tells me that they have a stronger investment in making sure that they are taking care of the household financially. And if you find yourself subscribing to this ideal that you as a woman aren't as good at money as men, you can start to kind of push that to the side, especially as we get into these other myths. The second myth is that women aren't good at math. And the thought there is that because they are not good at math, they therefore cannot be good at money. Because how could you possibly be good at money if you're not good at math? Well, lest you forget, this one right here, yours truly has failed college algebra. I do not like to think of myself as a math person, but I really enjoy projections and spreadsheets and tapping some numbers into a retirement calculator online, because for me, knowing my numbers leads to feeling better about my financial standing. So let's go first back to this sentiment that women aren't as good at math as men. So this one's a little bit tricky because there's a lot of socialization here about why women feel like they've been boxed out of math. And we see that in our STEM careers, right? We see that women are underrepresented in those types of careers. And the thought might be that they're underrepresented because they aren't as good at that style of thinking. But when we look at the studies, most studies, when it comes to comparing boys and girls, show that more or less they are the same. In one study, I was able to see that there was the potential of boys being 0.1 to 0.3 standard deviations better than girls at math. But if you are in research, you know that that really doesn't mean anything. Anything less than a standard deviation away really kind of gets tossed out. So this really means that boys and girls perform the same on math. And as we dig into the studies and as we start to suss out where this myth got started that women aren't that good at math or that boys are better, is that when we look at the studies long term and we look at things outside of just boys and girls sitting down to take a math test, what these studies actually point to is it's not that it's a math issue, it's more of a confidence and an anxiety issue. Numerous studies point to the issue that women and girls have lower confidence in math and higher levels of anxiety in math. So I want for you to remind yourself that if you're a woman who has internalized this idea that you're not good at math, that first of all, you don't have to be that good at math to be good at money. It's really, really simple math. And there are numerous online calculators to help you kind of figure out what you need to be doing anyway. So even if you are like me and you're like, math ain't my thing, there are so many different Excel templates and online calculators that can help you figure out the numbers. But then the other thing is just coming back to when we look at the numbers, gender doesn't really make a difference in terms of if a person is going to be better or worse at math than somebody else. It really comes down to confidence and anxiety. To go off on a tangent a little bit, it's really important that we embody confidence when we enter into certain situations. There was a study that showed that what we wear impacts how we do on academic tests. This one's one of my favorite studies to tote out when I have been schlubbing around for a week and I feel like garbage. And then I remember, well, yeah, I've been in my PJs for a week and a half, and that can certainly impact the way I feel about myself. So on to the study. The study took adults and took a plain white coat, let's call it, and in half of the participants, they put it on them how you would put a coat on. So the buttons were in the front, and they said to them, this is a lab coat as in something a physician might wear or a scientist might wear. And they sat them down to do an academic test. Then for the other half of the participants, they took that same coat, but they turned it around so they were putting the coat on backwards, really. And what they told them was, hey, this is a smock for artists. Do you remember those days in like kindergarten and first grade when you would put on those oversized button downs, but you'd put them on backwards and it would be your artist smock? Well, that's what they did. And they had them take an academic test as well. And surprise, surprise, actually no surprise, the people who thought they were wearing a lab coat did better on that test than the people who thought they were wearing an artist's smock. And this goes into how important it is for us to really step into what we are embodying. So if we are embodying what we envision a scientist or doctor to be like, we're probably imagining that they're very smart and very sharp and very quick, and we embody that when we take a test. Now, the stereotype then of artists is that they are more creative and therefore not as good at traditional academic studies. And those folks may have embodied that when they went to take that test. So all of these studies to say women aren't as good at math as men is categorically false. It's just not true, but there is some truth that women have lower confidence in math and higher anxiety in math. So that is something that you can work through. All right. Myth number 3. Women are bad at investing. This next one, the number that I'm going to share with you kind of blew my mind. According to Fidelity, and for those of you who don't know, Fidelity is a brokerage firm, which means they can manage investments and retirement accounts. According to Fidelity, 91% of people in one of their surveys think that men are better investors than women, which means that only 9% of people who took this study think that women are better investors than men. 91%. Like, to me, that was incredibly high, even though I had kind of assumed that a lot of people would believe the myth that women are bad at investing. I honestly didn't think it was going to be 9 out of 10 people. I thought maybe 6, maybe 7, but 9 out of 10 people, I mean, that tells me this particular myth is really strong and really rooted in our collective psyche. So let's actually talk about whether or not this one is true. In fact, dun, 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 women are better at investing than men. And the way that I have looked at this and seen this one measured is that men tend to be more active traders when it comes to investing. Statistically, according to a study by Fidelity and then another one by Warwick, men traded 45% more frequently than women when it came to investing. So we know that this idea of trying to time the market and trying to beat the market and picking out individual stocks sounds like the way to be a good investor. But what we actually know is that buying something kind of boring and vanilla like an index fund, if you listen to my episode on 6 Secrets of Millionaires, a lot of those millionaires love the plain old vanilla index funds. Those index funds tend to do better. So you can be active in there, buying and selling stocks, thinking that you're making a ton of money. But again and again, year over year, plain old index funds win again and again. Which brings me to women. Women actually outperform men in terms of their investment strategies by 1.2% annually. And if we think about, sure, 1.2% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're imagining getting a good return on investments being around 8%, if you're saying somebody's going to make 8% and somebody else is going to make 6.8%, right, that 1.2% difference, over the long run, that 1.2% is going to make a huge difference because of the beauty that is compound interest. So, women, remember that you actually are better than men at investing because you buy and hold plain old vanilla index funds. So that is a great way to dispel the myth, is to just look at those numbers. Myth number 4. Women are impulsive shoppers, aka they are not to be trusted with money, right? How many of us can think of a movie or a book or this image of a woman who has to put her credit card in the freezer, or she can't go out or she'll spend everything, or these jokes in heterosexual relationships where, oh my gosh, she just like racks up stuff on their credit card. We have this idea that women don't get money. And going back to myth number 1, we have this idea that somehow women are bad at money, and how this one is a little bit different is the idea that women somehow are impulsive spenders and they can't be trusted with money. And again, dun, 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 data actually points in the opposite direction. And it's not that men are worse with money in terms of being impulsive spenders. It's just that both genders actually do like to do their research. It's very rare that an online shopper goes online and purchases something that very first visit to an e-commerce website. Often they have to visit it again and again. On average, I think it's 7 to 9 times. And of course, I've got all the other studies in front of me, but not this one. But we'll call it 7 to 9 times before they buy. So both men and women, they like to research before they shop. But when it comes to this myth that women can't be trusted with money, that they're overspending, it's actually different. According to an auditing firm in the Netherlands, KPMG, in 2017, they found that on average, men spend about $220 per transaction compared to $151 per transaction for women. So again, it's not that men shop more than women or that women aren't as impulsive as men. It's just that men tend to spend more. So I want for you to kind of think about that. If you have this idea that somehow you're an impulsive spender, to just take a look at studies actually point that both men and women kind of have similar habits when it comes to shopping, but it's men who actually end up spending more. All right, 5th and final myth, and then I will share with you some ways to tackle these myths if you have embodied them. Myth number 5, women who make too much money won't be desirable. This one, for whatever reason, out of all of them, really gives me just like, makes me want to throw up a little bit, right? It's just so rooted in sexism and the patriarchy, and it's so gross. And the problem with this myth is that it's sort of true. Ugh, I know, I can't believe I'm even saying it, but we're moving in the right direction. So according to a few different studies, one by Noel Chelsea in 2016 and one by Farley Dixon University, the number of people who think marriage is better when the man is the breadwinner than the woman, and again, this one is rooted in heteronormative ideals, so talking about heterosexual couples, the number of people who think marriage is better when the man earns more money than the woman, in 1997, 40% of people agreed with that statistic. In 2019, only 28% of people agree with that statistic. So we're moving in the right direction. More people are starting to see that marriage is not, the only recipe to a good marriage is not if he makes more, right? So we're moving in the right direction. 20 years ago, 40% of the people agreed that men should be the breadwinner if you wanted to have a happy marriage. Now it's only 28% of people who agree with that. And it's really important that we fight back against this image that somehow a powerful woman isn't desirable. In the United States, amongst heterosexual couples, 39% of married heterosexual couples have a breadwinning woman. So clearly, people are still able to get married and have healthy and happy relationships when she makes more. And more often, I think we're going to see that 39% move up to 50%. I think we're finally starting to get to a place where people don't care who makes more. But I do think there are some serious messages in our culture and in our society that tell women to play down their success if they are the breadwinner. And it's sad, it's unfortunate. All of these myths are sad and unfortunate. But this one in particular just really can make women self-sabotage in a lot of ways. It goes along with the myth if you listen to my financial archetypes episode. It goes along with kind of the blissfully ignorant archetype in that women don't necessarily want to think about money. They might hold on to these beliefs that having money makes them a bad person or makes them a bad woman. So this myth kind of fits into that archetype. So those are the 5 myths, and I hope I provided enough evidence to help you dispel them. So let's talk about what you can replace these myths with if you find yourself thinking any of them. So back to the top, number 1, women aren't as good at money as men. So if you're a woman and you find yourself kind of thinking like this, start to just neutralize it. I do this all the time, right? If you've been listening to my podcast for a while, I use that term all the time. But it's this idea that we don't necessarily have to jump from negative to positive. We just want to neutralize it. So even just saying something as not inflammatory as women are just as good at money as men can be a great replacement for that first myth. Number 2, women aren't good at math. Same thing. Women are just as good at math as men. Start replacing it with that thought. Women are bad at investing. Myth number 3. Nope, actually false. So you can actually start telling yourself that women are just as good at men as investing. In fact, they actually outperform them by 1.2% annually. For myth number 4, women are impulsive spenders. You can start telling yourself that you spend in alignment with your values and are happy to spend when it makes sense for you. And then finally, women who make too much money won't be desirable. You can just drop kick that one right out of there and just say, if you're with somebody who thinks that you're not desirable because you make a lot of money, they're probably not a good fit for you anyway. So we're not even going to fight that one. We're just going to say, nope, not for me, not for you. Alrighty, so those are the 5 myths that I hear and heard a lot. And I wanted to invite my lady listeners to a money shame release party tonight, August 3rd. If you are listening to this last minute, it's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And the point of this money shame release party is because so many of us women have internalized this idea that somehow we aren't as good at money as you heard in these myths. We're bad at math. We're not desirable. And that guilt kind of compounds into shame, and it prevents us from taking action. Going back to my washi tape example, the negative self-talk that I had, that I wouldn't be good at creating a design, it would turn out bad, I'm not creative, all of that stopped me from just trying to, put a few strips of tape on the wall. So if we think about something as innocuous as putting tape on a wall, we can imagine how hard it can be if we are listening to all of these things about how bad women are at money. And so that's why this money shame release party is really created for you. I'm going to kick off the party by inviting everyone to introduce themselves. This will help us to cultivate a sense of safety. I'll talk about why a full moon is the best time to release stuff, and I'll share my money shame story and encourage you to journal on your money shame and share to help move toward healing. It is a live session and will not be recorded or replayed to really protect the privacy and safety of everybody who attends. And it's a pay what you can session to make it accessible to most. So you can pay $47, you can pay $97, you can pay something there in the middle. If you want information on how to get to it, you can go to my website, www.mindmoneybalance.com, and a little pop-up will pop up today on Monday, August 3rd. If you follow me on Instagram at mindmoneybalance, DM me and I can send you the link. And if you're listening to this after Monday, August 3rd, no worries. Shoot me a DM if you missed it and you wanted to come. This is my first time hosting a money shame release party. And if it goes well, I'm happy to do it again. So just if you are listening to this after the party has happened, no worries. Shoot me a message. If there's enough interest, I will run it again. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to this. I know our podcast feeds and Instagram feeds are so full these days, so it means the world to me that you carved out 25 minutes for yourself to start to undo some of these myths about women and money. I'll see you next week. If you love this episode, take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram at Mind Money Balance with your favorite takeaway. I love seeing what resonates with my listeners and sharing it in my stories. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week, right here. Neither the host or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, medical, or other professional information. If you want professional help, please seek it out.